Guys, welcome you all. This is Shakti from Shakti Academy. Please like our video and share. Don't forget to subscribe our channel. Press bell icon so that you could get updated videos of our channel. Right? Hello guys. Today we are going to discuss about theme 3 from part 1, that is the colonial cities, right? So here the sources of the colonial cities were records of the East India Company. So these records is nothing but the records of the trade administration and the collecting the taxes and other things. And the next one is the census report, which was introduced by the colonial government. And the third one is the municipal report, right? So the municipal report is nothing but the town urbanization and the development of the town, while the people started to paying the taxes to the municipality government, right? So before we discuss about the colonial cities, let's we discuss and what are the things how consist in this lesson. So first one is the urban population, right? So when the development of the cities had happened, especially in the three cities of the Bombay, Madras and Calcutta, so during that time the urban population were increased increased up to 10% to 13% during the period of 1900 to 1940, right? So within a 40 years the urban population have increased from 10% to 13%, and during the end of the 18th century the the administration system and provincial centers of Bombay, Madras and Calcutta were being developed, and these three were considered as an important port during the colonial government. So next one is the ruling elites built racial exclusive clubs and the racecourses and the other theatres for their public entertainment. And next one is the development of the new modes of the transport such as horse-drawn carriages and the trams, buses, etc. And here people facilitated to live at the distant places, and people started to go to their job from the distant places by using this such transportation, right? So next one is the rulers everywhere tried to express their power through the buildings, and the many Indians adopted the European style of the architecture as symbol of the modernity and civilization. So previously we have this previously, which means at the classes of grade 7 you have discussed about the black town and the white town. So in the black town is consisting the Indians and the white town is consisting the British. So here the Indian merchants and the Indian traders, especially the rich merchants and the traders, those who are living in the black town, they started to follow the cultures of the European architectural, and this is known as the symbol of modernity and civilization, right? So next one is the settlements were being divided into two, as I told you that the black town and the white town. And the black town is fully fortified, and it was away from the white town. So why it was totally separated from the white town is nothing but the British people thought that they need a hygienic as well as the purity from in their city, so that the black people, the Indians never follow the such incidents, such instructions in their black town. So that's what the British people thought, that the disease like a pandemic disease may be spread from the black town. So that's what here they were built their white town away from the black town, right? So first one is the town and the cities in the pre-colonial time. So how was the towns were being developed in the pre-colonial, before the arrival of the British, is nothing but that towns were defined as the opposition of the rural areas, and the towns represented a specific form of economic activities and the culture. And here the people lived by cultivating the land and foraging the food and the rearing animals, especially in the villages side. Then after that, but you just take the people, those who are living in the towns, most probably the people from the towns are artisans and the traders and the administration or rulers, right? So town dominated over the rural population, and towns and the cities were often fortified by walls which symbolized the separation from the countryside. When towns were attacked, the people often sought to shelter in the countryside, and the traders and the peddlers took goods from the town to sell in the new villages to increase as their customer and to create the different types of marketings, right? So there were the revenue flows of the human and the goods from the town to villages, and the town built by the Mughals were famous for their concentration of the population, their monumental buildings and their imperial grandeur and wealth. So next one is the three important towns were being consisted as the important centers of the imperial administration and the control. Among the three is nothing but the Agra, Delhi and Lahore, right? Agra, Delhi and Lahore were considered as the important center of imperial administration and the control. And after that, the artisans, those who were living in the city of Agra, Delhi and the Lahore, they started to produce a more exclusive handicraft for the European households of nobles, right? Then next thing is the grains. They started to export from the place of the countryside, and finally they have brought this grains to the urban markets for the towns dwellers and the armies and other people, and after that the treasury also was being introduced in the place of the imperial capitals. So within the towns of the white, the people started building the gardens, mosque, temple, and tombs, colleges, bazaars, and the caravansaries. Every facilities will be available within the town, and the people don't want to seek for another places for expecting the such public things like a mosque, temples, tombs, colleges, bazaars, and other things, right? So the focus of the town was oriented towards the place and the principal mosque, right? So next one is we are going to discuss about the towns in the South India. So previously we have discussed the towns of the east and the northern places like Lahore, Delhi, and other places, right? So now the temples in the south, the towns in the South India is nothing but, as you know, that the Madurai and the Kanchipuram, which often known as the principal focusing was the temple, right? So the places of the Madurai and the Kanchipuram is often focusing on the temple, and these temples were important for their commercial center, and later the place of Madurai and Kanchipuram become the big important commercial center of the colonial government, right? Then religious festival often coincides with the fairs linking the pilgrimage with the trade. So here often the trade, whenever the temple cities of Madurai and the Kanchipuram were happened the function and the festival, so during that time the pilgrimages, those who are visiting from one state to another state or one country to another country to the city of the Madurai and Kanchipuram, and there the people used to come not only as a pilgrimage but also the traders, and that's what here the cities in the South India of Madurai and the Kanchipuram are considered as the commercial important centers, right? So then the ruler was highest authority and the principal patron of the religious institution, and the relationship that he had with the other group classes and that determined their places in the society and in the town. Next one is the changes in the 18th century. So here what are the changes were made by the British, especially in the 18th century. So which means you know that from the 18th century is the development of the urbanization had happened in the Indian subcontinents, right? So the old towns went decline and the new towns developed in the 18th century, and the growth of new religious powers were reflected in increasing the important regional capitals, right? So in the end of the 18th century, the old town were being demolished by the British, which was built by the Mughals, and later they have built a new system of the styles with the European styles in the places of Lucknow, Hyderabad, Srirangapatnam, Pune, and Nagpur, Baroda, and Tanjore, right? So these are known as the regional capitals of colonial government, right? So once again you see regional capital of colonial government were Lucknow, Hyderabad, Srirangapatnam, Pune, Nagpur, Baroda, and Tanjore, right? So the trade administrator, artisans, and other migrated from the old Mughal centers to these new capitals to such as the work and patronage. So previously we have discussed that the old Mughal cities were being demolished by the British. Then later they have introduced the new regional capital, and after that the people, those who are living as artisans, administrator, and the trader in the place of the Mughal centers, they started to migrate to the new cities which was introduced, new regional capital for searching of the works as a patronage, right? So in some places there was renewed economic activities, in other places war, plunder, and the political uncertainty led to economic decline. The European commercial companies had set up their base in the different places yearly during the Mughal era, which means here the different countries, different European states were introduced their companies in India. As per this, the Portuguese in Panaji, the Portuguese have introduced their company in Panaji, which is in Goa, in 1510, and the next one is the Dutch East India Company were been introduced in Masulipatam in 1605, and the British East India Company in Madras in 1639, and the French East India Company in Pondicherry, present day in Puducherry, in 1873, right? So next one is by the end of the 18th century, the land-based empire. The land-based empire is nothing but the people, those who are ruling India, all replaced by the powerful sea-based European empires, which means here the politically the British people have consolidated the power in the late 18th century, and the forces of internal trade and the mercantilism and the capitalism now come to decline decline the new nature of the society, and the commercial centers such as Surat, Masulipatam and the Dhaka, which they were growing in the 17th century, had declined when the trade shifted to other places. Then Madras, Bombay, Calcutta rapidly emerged as the new economic capitals at the center of the colonial administration and the political power, and the new building occupation institutions developed, right? So once the British people have consolidated their power in the end of the 18th century, so that time the development of the Madras, Bombay and Calcutta were emerged with the new economic developments and the capitals. Then after that, the Madras, Bombay, Calcutta were considered as the provincial centers as well as the administration and the political power of the Indian subcontinent, and later the new buildings, occupation, new institutions and the private colleges and the British government have introduced many things in the India, right? So next one is the finding about the colonial cities. This is nothing but the production and the data. Okay, what are the data the historians have found to reconstruct the history of the British is nothing but, first one is here the British kept the detailed record of their trading activity in order to regulate their commercial affairs, right? So whatever the trade, even it may be a small scale industrial or commercial industrial, the British often keen listening and keeping the detailed record for their trade activities, and after that they have carried the regular surveys on the gathered statistical data and the published a various official report of the Indian map and other thing, and the latter the town map were being given the important location, okay, important location of the hill station and the river banks and the vegetation and other things. So after that the different types of the maps were being introduced by the British, especially for the defense purposes, and these maps also show the location of the guts, density and the equality of the houses and the alignments of the road, and are used to gauge commercial possibilities and plan strategies for taxation, right? So the main purpose of introducing the map, especially the Indian map and the town map, is nothing but for the defense purposes. Not only the defense purposes, but also the people the British wanted to know the hill stations and the riverines and the vegetation and the density and the guts, and it will be comfortable for collecting the taxes by dividing the administration, right? So next one, the municipal corporation with some popular representative was meant to administer essential services such as water supply, sewages, road building and public. Then later the municipality system and the corporation were been introduced in India, and here the duty of the municipality is nothing but to give essential service to the people like water supply, sewages, road building and public health, right? So next one is the trends of change. So the trends of change is nothing but economically development and the opportunities got and the new mode of the transportation have introduced in India. So previously we have discussed that Calcutta, Bombay and Madras on the other hand grew rapidly soon become, and in the end of the 18th century, later the introduction of the railway in 1853, not on the first railway in India introduced in 1853 from Bombay to Thane, that consisted 34 kilometers, and this railway made many changes in the trading activities in India. So here the economic activity gradually shifted from the traditional towns of where they located and the old routes on the riverine, and every railway station became the collection points of the raw material and the distribute points of imported goods, right? So after that, before the establishment of the railway in 1853, the people often depending on the old routes like riverines and the sea routes, right? So here instead of the riverines, the people started establishing the railway station, right? So after that, this railway station became the collection depot, the collection center of the raw material from the Indians and the distribution center of the imported goods from the European countries, right? So these railway towns like Jamalpur, Valtair and the Braille and developed as a trading center. So railway centers in India, the first railway centers in India developed like Jamalpur, Valtair and Braille developed as a trading centers as well as the railway centers, right? So next one is what were the new towns like ports, forts and the centers of services, right? So Madras, Bombay and Calcutta had become the important ports in the end of the 18th century, and the East India Company built the factories because of the competition among the European companies and they fortified the settlement for production. Next one is in Madras they have built Fort St. George, and in Calcutta they built Fort William, and in Bombay they have built Bombay Fort, and here these three cities, as I told you that three commercial and the administration centers, they have built the fort. So as per this, St. John Fort is located, Fort St. George is located in Madras, and Fort Williams is located in Calcutta, and the Bombay Fort is located in Bombay, right? So there were the different quarters for the Europeans and the Indians, which come to be labeled as a contemporary rating as the Black Town and the White Town, and the two industrial cities also developed like a Kanpur, right? So here two industrial cities were being developed, especially for the particular raw material. So Kanpur specializing in leather. Note on, first one is Kanpur, which is specializing in leather, woolen and the cotton textile, and the next one is Jamshedpur, is specialized in steel, right? So two important industrial cities were developed in the colonial government. First one is Kanpur, next one is Jamshedpur, right? So next one is India never became the modern industrial administration, as the discriminatory colonial politics limited the level of industrial development. Madras, Calcutta, Bombay grew into the large city, but they did not signify any dramatic economic growth, right? So even what some archaeologists and the historians are telling about the development of the Bombay, Calcutta and Chennai is Madras is nothing but here anyway the cities like Bombay, Calcutta and Madras is growing rapidly, and it became the large city, but it won't help any colonial India. It won't help any colonial India to develop economically. Okay, so like this the suggestion were given by the historians, right? So next one is the new urban milieu is nothing but the political power have been shifted from Indian rulers to the merchants of the East India Company. And here the Indians who worked as interpreters and the middlemen, traders and the suppliers of goods also had an important place in these new cities, and the economic activities near the river of the sea led to the development of the docks and the guts around the periphery of the port. Europeans, merchants and the agents built the garden houses and the racially exclusive clubs and the race courses and other theaters for the ruling elites, right? So the first hill station, this is a very important point in the lesson of the colonial cities. So here the British often want to seek the place where they could keep their military, especially the European soldiers, to be comfortable. So when you take the atmosphere and the climatic condition of the Europe is totally different from India, so that's what here the European soldiers wanted to adapt themselves to the Indian climatical atmosphere, so that here the British often seeking the place where they could keep and where they can protect the European soldiers, and they can give some of the place to find like European climates, right? So that's what, as per this, initially they have found the places. The first one is here they have choose the place of Simla, right? First they have chose the place of the Simla, and the later they have found in the different places, especially from the Assam and other Himalaya, underfoot of the Himalaya and other places, right? So the hill station were the distinctive feature of the colonial urban development. The hill station were initially connected with the needs of the British army. Hill station became the strategic places for billeting the troops, guarding frontiers and the launching campaigns against the enemy ruler. And the temperature and the cool climate of the Indian hills was seen as an advantage for the European soldiers, and the British associated for hot weather with the epidemics, cholera and malaria, and attempts were made to protect armies from these diseases, right? So initially, as I told you that from the Black Town, the British got the fear about the epidemics like cholera, malaria and other diseases. Here the British are the responsible for protecting the European soldiers from the such epidemic diseases. So that's what here they need a cold weather. Okay, they need a cold climate and the weather. That's what they are often seeking the place of the hill station, right? So hill station were also developed in as a sanatoriums, and the sanatorium means the hospitals were being made in the hill station, and where the places of place where the soldiers could be sent for the rest and recover from their illness, right? So next one is the segregation of the Bombay, Madras and Calcutta, right? So in which basis they have segregated the Bombay, Madras and Calcutta is nothing but in 1639. In 1639, the British constructed the trading post in Madrasapatnam, right? Madrasapatnam, and the settlement known as Chennapatnam. Okay, so the initial name of the Madras was Chennapatnam, and the company have purchased the right from the settlement of the local Telugu lords and the Nayaks of the Kalahasti, and the rivalry from French East India Company led the British to fortify Madras. Next one is Chintrapet. Okay, Chintrapet area means for the weavers, and the Washermanpet colony is famous for the dyers, and the Royapuram was a settlement for Christian boatmen. Right. Next one is Dubashish. Okay, the Dubashish were the Indians who could speak the languages of the local languages and English, and the Pariahs and the Vanyas formed a laboring poor, and Nawab of Arcot settled in nearby Triplicane, and while becoming the nucleus of the substantial Muslim settlement, and the Mylapore and the Triplicane were the early Hindu religious center that supported a large group of Brahmins. Next one is Santhom. Next one is the place of Santhom, which it's a cathedral was the center of the Roman Catholic, and White Town Fort St. George. So Fort St. George became the nucleus of the White Town where the most European used to live, and the color and religion determined who was allowed to live in the fort, and the company did not permit any marriages with Indians, and other than the English, the Dutch and the Portuguese were allowed to stay because they were European and Christians, right? So here there were the strong rules and regulation which was made by the East India Company that no European should marry the Indian woman except Portuguese, Dutch, because these they were the Indians as well as they were Christian. That's what here the company did not give permission, right? So next one is the Black Town. The Black Town, as you know, that this Black Town were developed outside from the fort, and where the people used to live like housed weavers and the artisans and other people, and the middlemen and the interpreters were also the person who used to play a vital role in the company trade. But even though they are not allowed to stay within the White Town, they often want to depending on the Black Town since they were Indians, right? So the city architecture in Calcutta. Next one is the development of Calcutta, right? So the vast open space around the fort became the landmark, and the Calcutta is the first significant town planning measure, which means the Fort William and the Maiden. Okay, Fort William and the Maiden was the first significant town planning measure of Calcutta, and in 1798 Lord Wellesley became the Governor General of Calcutta, and he became built a massive places and the government houses, right? So existing racial divided into the White Town and the Black Town was reinforced by the new divided of a healthy and unhealthy, right? So previously we have discussed that the towns were divided into divided as the White Town and the Black Town, and the latter that reinforced by the new dividing of a healthy and unhealthy. Healthy is nothing but the British, unhealthy is nothing but the Indian towns, right? So it was as if the grandeur of the cities had to reflect the authority of the imperial power. So next one is the architecture in Bombay. So this is nothing but the development of the Bombay that we are going to discuss is that towards the beginning of the 20th century, a new hybrid architectural system had been introduced in the place of the Bombay, especially that Indian with the European combined, okay, Indian with the European combined style. So this was called the Indo-Saracenic, okay, Indo-Saracenic, which means Indo was shortened for the Hindu, and Saracen was then a term European used for designate Muslim. That's what the style is called, Indo-Saracenic, okay. So here Jamshedji Tata built the Taj Mahal Hotel of Bombay in the Indo-Saracenic style, which means both Indian and European mixed style, okay, which was built by Jamshedji Tata, is known as present we people are knowing it, calling it as the Taj Hotel, right? So another style was extensively used was the neo-Gothic, and characterized by the high-pitched roof and the pointed arches and the detailed decoration, right? So next one is what builders and the architectural styles tell us. So finally, what does the architectural styles is telling us is nothing but architecture reflects the aesthetic ideals prevalent at the time and the variation within those ideal, and these buildings also express the vision of those who build them, and the rulers everywhere seek to express their power through buildings. Architectural style not only represent the reflect of the prevalent taste, they must popularize the style and shape the contours of the cultures, right? So here, why did the people, or for example, when the British people were ruling in India, at that time they tried to introduce their European style along with the Indian system. And even though instead of British, if many other countries like Dutch and other places, for example, you just take the places of the Pondicherry, where the Dutch people where the Dutch people lived. So that time some of the buildings some of the building they built with this Dutch style. So like this, the people those are ruling in the particular place, so they started to introduce their new architectural systems. So later the same system was being intermingled with the Indian styles, and the people are started following the same things, right? So these are the things which we have discussed in the colonial cities. So once again I am telling that the colonial cities is nothing but the development of the imperial cities like Bombay, Madras and Calcutta. That's it, right? Thank you.